Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are on Tuesday, March 5th. We're going to take a look at Chargepoint today. So with earnings coming up, I thought we'd come and take a look and see where Chargepoint might hit some support or resistance, whether it booms or busts, and of course, levels that it might find itself at if it moves relatively sideways. Now, while we're zoomed out here, and you can see the sad history of Chargepoint stock, we do have this gap that's still way up here. So I don't know if it'll come for it or if it'll fill it at any point, but if it does get some tailwinds and get some bullish momentum going, this would be several weeks, months, maybe years in the future at this point, but something to maybe keep an eye on if we really get a boom going. Now, while we're working our way downward, another area to keep a strong eye on in terms of boom going would be this area right here. I'm going to extend it out further. This is proven before to be a strong sell-off area. We had put it in, looking for that in this range here, and that's what happened. And at that point had developed this downtrend resistance and has sort of broken free of it as of late. It's gotten a decent distance from it, but just sort of bumped up and then sidestepped its way away from it. So we'll see if that sort of continues to hold or not. But that 303 level and stretching up to about what is this? About 330 or so, gets a little tricky. Yeah, like 303 to 330. There could be quite a few sellers in that range, so we'll see if it gets there. First of all, if that sort of proves to be the case again. Now, nearer in levels, depending on exactly where it finishes the day, we're about 50 minutes away from close right now, but 194 would be the nearest in support level that I see, and 204 being the nearest in resistance level. So if it does get a bullish push off of earnings, 219, 239, 258, and then the levels that we spoke about up above. If it sells off 184, 174, and 165, if it dips below that, it's going to get a little bit tricky, but if folks are interested, and it does, just leave me a comment, and I would do my best to come in and put an updated chart together. Now, on the think or swim side of things, we have potentially, again, it's going to depend how the day finishes off, but it looks right now like it's putting in a new trigger candle. I don't really know if we're going to continue to sort of have these flat reactions to trigger and fire, but we had one here, trigger fire, nothing happened, trigger fire, nothing happened. So this would be a re-trigger and a fire. Sometimes look for the re-trigger and refire for a big move, sort of like we had over here. Let's see what this looked like. We had a lengthy trigger and fire, didn't do much of anything, a little bit of roller coaster action, which we see sometimes, and started to trickle down a little bit, and trigger, fire, another trigger and fire. So this also sort of went in triplicate before this huge move came down. It spent a very long time outside of the channel, worked its way in, and then got pushed right back out of the channel. So maybe this is how Chargepoint sort of interacts with the TTM squeeze indicator, goes in these triplicates as opposed to singles or doubles, which is typically what we see. So we'll see. Maybe if there's a new one coming in now, a new trigger and fire that's about to come through, even if it's relatively brief, maybe that will set off the move. But of course, earnings could just be a big enough catalyst that it doesn't really matter all that much. Now, levels that we might want to pay attention to in terms of the channel. So if it's going to stay within the bounds of the channel right now, upper bound situated at 237, mid-upper 221. That mid-range of the channel, can't see it, but it's right around 2 maybe, some 204-ish, 203, something like that. 187 and 170 to the downside. So it's going to stay within the channel. Those are the bounds right now. Of course, like we see, Chargepoint can spend quite a bit of time outside of the channel. And, so it could certainly stretch out of the upper or the lower bound of the channel, depending on how strong the earnings reaction is. But it'll be interesting to see, since there has been such a crazy sell-off. It wasn't such a different price point, after the last earnings. So we're sort of in a similar-ish range, and that was after that sort of big drop on this day, down over 35%. But, there's been a lot of strong reactions to earnings, but it'll be interesting to see now that it's spent a couple or a few earnings in this sort of extremely low price range, how the market digests the reaction to the actual posted earnings as they stand. Because there's one thing to have sort of the black and white on the paper and exactly what it states. There's another thing what the market sentiment is around their reaction to that report. So sometimes folks feel like, or the market on whole feels that something has been sort of like overly sold off, or overly bought into. And so sometimes it can react in sort of quirky ways. We'll see. Obviously, pretty bearish chart when you zoom out, but we'll see if any of that changes or how the market digests that as it corresponds to the actual nuts and bolts of the report. We'll know that pretty soon. All right, folks, I hope that your trading week is off to a good start. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.